Today in this video I'm going to show you how to pin a paper pattern onto fabric. A paper pattern is anything that's been cut out of paper that you're going to use to get the shape of the paper onto the fabric. This paper pattern was part of a bigger piece of paper, and I previously used paper scissors to cut it out, and now we're going to use it to make a cloth piece. You're going to need pins, fabric shears, and cloth or fabric, and of course the pattern. I decided to use felt for this. I'm going to use a piece of white and a piece of cream, and because I want two pieces exactly the same, I'm going to stack those up nice on top of each other. I'm going to take my pattern and I'm going to put my pattern in the corner. Fabric conservation is when you always want to try to use a corner to cut your pattern out of. This is such a little piece of cloth, but if it was very big, if I cut it in the center of the fabric, then I'd be ruining the whole thing. So instead I want to cut way off on the side. Now I'm going to pin it in. To pin, we hold the head of the pin, we stick the pin in, we make a mountain, and we push it through. You should see the tip of the pin and the head of the pin, and on the back side you should see this little piece of the pin going through. That shows you that it's through both layers of fabric and the paper. You don't need to have a ton of pins in something to cut it out, especially when you're working with felt, because felt doesn't move very much. If I was working with a real silky material, I would want to have more pins. So once I've pinned it, I cut it out. With these spikes, it can be kind of hard to cut. So I actually am going to do a big circle around the top of the spikes. As I cut, I am careful not to cut the paper because I don't want to dull my fabric shears. And I am also careful. Sometimes it might be a little bit bigger than my pattern. If I am okay with that, I can leave it. If not, I can go back and then I can just trim that one little area. I can also trim it up after I take the paper off. I'm cutting in nice long strokes. I am cutting on a nice open surface. You can tell there's nothing else on the surface. I don't have any other fabric underneath my fabric that I'm cutting, because if I have something underneath, I might accidentally cut that fabric as well. And I'm going to trim off this little feet here. Now I've got the main body of this done, as you can see. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to cut these. When I cut these, I don't mind if they're exactly the way that the paper looks. So I am just going to cut little triangles out. Now, as you can tell, some of them fell out and some of them didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my pins out of my pattern now. I'm going to take my paper off, set that in its put away spot, and then I'm going to pin a couple more in here just to keep it together. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to reshape these and make sure that I get them cut off completely. And the reason I didn't want to do this with the pattern on is because then I would have been cutting the pattern. So I'm going to reshape those, and then I'm going to check. Some of these aren't very pointy, so I'm going to go back because I want him to have pointy hair. And I am going to shape his hair a little bit, just like being at the barber shop or the salon, shaping his hair. One more here. There. Now, all the little bits and pieces are going to go into the garbage. These little pieces, these are all garbage unless I have a use for them. Like, for example, maybe I want to give him some buttons, and I could use those little triangles for buttons. For the most part, these little pieces, they go in the garbage. These big pieces, though, these will go into our felt box, and they'll be there for other people to grab and cut out and use. And that is how you cut out a pattern. So I needed my paper pattern, I needed my 2 pieces of fabric, I needed my pins, I needed my fabric shears, and then I cut it out. Have fun.